Hi guys, today I'm just going to do a review of uh, the second round of the Heineken Champions Cup, or the Investec Champions Cup as it is now. I always know it as the Heineken Cup, so if I call it that, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, when I was talking about it from round one, I was very impressed with both fly halves for Leinster. Now, some channels I don't get, so I'm only seeing extended highlights, and then sometimes I'll see those dodgy streaming services. I'll see the game on that. Um, but I got to see the Leinster game anyway. My God, like you can't help but feel like they left a lot of points out there. I was watching that one live on the well, not live, it was recorded, but you know what I mean. Saw the whole thing. It was only 15-7 in the end. You think to yourself, "Jeez, that should have been put to bed." Like Leinster scored two tries after letting Clermont get the first try, and you think to yourself, like French teams always do, they're gonna burn out, which they did. And yeah, Clermont were strong. Like you always expect a physical performance from the likes of Clermont and well, French teams in general. They're very physical. I remember playing them before, and they always are. Like they're just powerhouses. It's insane. Just big French farmers, and we played a few lads from New Caledonia, which is French Polynesia. Like Piero Movaca and Sebastian Vahamahina. So I got it right, I think. And Roman Taufi Fanua. I think they're all New Caledonian or Wallisian, is what they call it, Wallace and Fortuna. But anyway, getting sidetracked. You know what you're going to get with them. So they'll come out firing. And they'll hit you hard. You've got to stay in the fight with French teams because they start very strong and they come out of the blocks strong, but then they drop off. It's kind of like when you see New Zealand playing South Africa, and obviously South Africa would be more physically strong, and they've managed to disrupt New Zealand and beat them more than any other team by just being physical, being confrontational and in your face. Whereas New Zealand would typically bring the flair and the skill, more typically. Um, but obviously that's changed, like the whole dynamic, because South Africa have brought that skill to their game, and now New Zealand aren't getting the whitewash like they used to. Like South Africa would take a huge lead before, but then they wouldn't be able to keep up with it, and New Zealand would just eventually wear them down, and then they'd score a few breakaway tries. I think New Zealand used to get most of their points in the last 20 minutes of the game because they would just have that fitness, and that's something you always associate with the All Blacks is great fitness. And like that's what you kind of associate with Irish teams. Like we know a lot of the time we're not going to win the physical battle, which I can't for the life of me understand because I've seen so many big physical players in Ireland, and I've said it before. Like it baffles me that Ulster are very weak physically because you think to yourself, anyone who's ever played against a team from Ulster will tell you they're physical, they're hard. You always come off the pitch sore. Like they're big fuckers, and not just that. It's very lean muscle. Like I think every second lad I played against before was built like Stephen Ferris. So you're gonna be sore. Really enough, set piece now wasn't something that they were great at. I remember going up there to play Ballyclare, in Antrim with the Gory lads, and there were a lot of really lean, powerful guys. But when we kept the ball in the scrum, like I was saying to the lads, keep it in, don't take it out because we're getting them, on the second shove, we're pushing, and I had a bit more timber on me at number 8, so I was able to contribute to the push. I said, keep it in, we'll win a penalty, and we did. Like, they were battering us all over the pitch, but in the set piece, like, we got the rolling maul going, and we were destroying them. We were so much better in the set piece, so maybe that's something that they don't really work on in Ulster because their scrum is diabolical at the minute. It's very bad. They get beaten so many times in the scrum, and I know Ulster lost to Bordeaux. Munster very unlucky against Castres. I know Castres held up a few times. Um, and a controversial try with Abraham Papali'i, the former Connacht player. Big fucker, isn't he? But yeah, I think Munster didn't have their best performance there, and it kind of bit them in the arse because uh, I felt like that was a team they could beat. Looking at the game, John Hodnett scored both tries. Fair play to him. He's someone. Him and Gavin Coombs and Tom Ahern actually are lads that I've had, you know, I've been a bit of a fanboy about them over the years. I thought they should get selection. And then Gavin Coombs has a few bad games. And it's like, oh, shit, he's had his opportunity and he blew it. Like when he played against the Maori All Blacks, people were saying, yeah, got his opportunity, blew it. I have to say, I was not overly impressed with Caelan Doris at the weekend. I thought he was very sloppy, dropped a few easy balls. I've never been 100% gone on him. I've got to say it. I know that I'll get in trouble for saying that with people, especially Irish fans, because you're supposed to just blindly say you love him and he's great. I think he's a very good player, but I don't trust him. Like that drop ball against New Zealand from the goal line dropout, and like lads that I've had debates with in rugby terms have said, yeah, but you're never going to, catch them 100% of the time. And I said, yeah, I get that, but how often does he catch it? This time was a big occasion. Very easy catch as well, like for someone like him. And he's played Gaelic football, so you think to yourself, safest pair of hands, but now he drops it. And then New Zealand get a great chance to break. So you think of that moment, and you think against Toulouse in the final. When he messed around with the ball on the ground, like he slapped it out of the ruck. What was he thinking? Like, he was the captain as well. You think to yourself, that's just stupid. You're getting the ascendancy here, because if you remember back, Leinster were actually doing very well, and there was a yellow card for James Lowe for a deliberate knock on. Now, I think Alexandra Ruma could have had one similar because he slapped the ball and there was no realistic chance of him winning it back, but I'm not blaming the ref. Leinster had more than enough opportunities to win that game, so let's not even go there. Lowe got a yellow card. You think to yourself, Matisse Labelle has just scored a try. Shit. This is going to be a hard one. And then Toulouse got a 10-point lead, I think, in extra time. And I thought, that's it, curtains. Richie Arnold gets a red card for a really bad clear out on Cian Healy. Leinster scored a try with none other than Josh van der Fleer. JVDF, Mr. Reliable, and he's someone that I will praise blindly because, well, not blindly, he deserves every bit of it because he has been so reliable and he always scores for us when we need him. So fair play to him. I know South Africans were trying to claim him. Keep your mitts off, he's Irish. Several generations Dutch, so he's Irish. We're claiming him. Actually went to school only down the road from where I lived in Wesley College, so more reason to love him. But when we were in the ascendancy as well, I say we because I am a Leinster fan. I know it might sound like I'm a bit harsh at times, I get that. But it's because I think the talent is not an issue. That's what annoys me the most. Irish rugby has the talent. They deserve, well, maybe not deserve because you have to actually do it to deserve it. But they've been there for so long now and they are good enough. But in that game, when they start getting the ascendancy and going from being 14 men on the field to all of a sudden 15 men, Richie Arnold then gets a red card and then Josh van der Fleer scores and you're within 3 points. You think, okay, the fight back is on. And Doris slaps the ball out of the ruck on the ground and you're there just thinking, what on earth are you doing? That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, like in a game of that magnitude, to slap the ball out when the odds are now in your favour and you're only a few points behind. Now you've just given them an opportunity to extend their lead, and really put the game to bed. From it being a one-score game, you've just allowed him to push their lead out further and you're just going, that is not good leadership at all, So, I don't know, I don't have 100% faith in him and he was very sloppy against Clermont. Conversely, someone who I don't think ever got enough praise was Jack Conan. He just kind of got forgotten about again, but look, I think his time is probably up in an Ireland jersey, sadly. They said he was a controversial selection, and I thought he always plays well when he plays, but I don't know what they're saying. Max Deegan was a bit quiet, wasn't he? Didn't really do much wrong, but didn't do an awful lot full stop. Had a few good carries, fairness to him. I think Sam Prendergast did okay, didn't do badly. I know he got man of the match, but even he looked surprised by that. And I think a big reason for that was because I don't think he was one of the top performers. I think the top performers have to be like Gary Ringrose, who did very well and has gotten a lot stronger. Do you see the leg drive on him? Like the pump in his legs afterwards. He's got so much more physical. He's only further cemented the fact for me that he has to start for the Lions. Um, as I was saying, that's why I put Hugh Jones at 12 because I think Ringrose has to start. Henshaw and Aki, yeah, great players. I think you bring them on the tour, but I think Ringrose is probably the best centre we have in Ireland and has been for a while. Um, I like the look of Cathal Ford for Connacht. I'd like to see him get a bit of game time. I think he's good enough, and he can do everything really. Powerful fella as well. Just have a bit of smoothie. Lovely, very good. But yeah, I wouldn't have given the man the match to Sam Prendergast. I thought Ringrose had a very good game. I thought Liam Turner looked very good. When he got the ball, he was a bit starved of it, but he looks like a good player. Power through Oliveretti Raka, the Fijian winger as well, which is no easy feat. James Ryan, I thought, had a very good game. I will say his carrying was very strong. I was impressed. I was very impressed with James Ryan, and I think it's good that he's added that to his game because you always knew what you were getting with him. You were getting a really good defender, like a solid defender. Like he was always very good at the tackling. He'd always top the tackle stats, and then. But this is something I'm going to talk about in a negative light because I have to. He needs to lead the line out. Somebody does. You can't really touch on the set piece and not talk about the line out. It was shambolic. And as I say, I'm a big fan of Ronan Kelleher, so I really don't like speaking negatively about him. But it's not all his fault. It isn't because his throwing wasn't good, it wasn't well timed, but when Gus McCarthy came on, the same issues were happening. And then Gus McCarthy tried throwing the ball slightly, well, not slightly, it was very skewed, to the outside shoulder. Don't know why I'm doing that. Depends on what side you are the line out. But like say if I'm on the left hand side, so if I jump up for it and it goes to my right hand, then that's in the middle. If I have to reach for it like that, that's fine. But if I have to reach for it with the outside arm, it's crooked. Anyone who knows rugby and has ever jumped in a line out like I have, they'll know. But to be fair to both McCarthy and Kelleher, the lift was off as well. Like there was one stage when Joe McCarthy went up for the ball and they didn't keep him in the air long enough. So like with the line out, I've lifted and jumped, so kind of have a good enough idea of it. You wouldn't get me up now, and I remember remember we did 5 men lineouts, and I got put as the centre just to crash the ball up. It was like no chance of me jumping a lift, but I'm not getting my fat arse up. But the thing is all about timing. Like the hooker has to throw the ball. You can't obviously put a man in the air before the hooker is thrown. That's a free kick. So you have to be waiting. You never see them with the hands like this, you just get into it, it's like a habit. But when the hooker throws the ball in, you then go up, and then you can go up quick and then come back down, because like you've seen people lift the likes of Will Skelton, so you're not going to keep him up in the air for very long. But it's like, if you want to get a quick ball into the line, so up, down, and then pop it to the scrum half, Gibson Park, do your thing. That's fair enough, but what they were doing was they were going to the tail of the line out, or the middle even, near the back. If you're doing it at the front, man, it's easy enough. Up, down, pop the ball. Or you can throw up, pop it down off the top, come straight back down. You don't have to really keep anyone up for very long. Problem was that they were going deep in the lineup, like right to the tail end of it, and still not keeping McCarthy up for long enough. So he was going up, ball was coming in, he was coming down. You could see him trying to, grab at the ball, but he couldn't, because the lifters obviously didn't do very well. They didn't do their job. They have to keep him in the air for longer. So that's another issue that I noticed. So it's not all the hooker's fault, and it'd be harsh to only blame the hooker. But it does seem to be an issue, and people have definitely spoken about Kelleher's throwing in particular before. And now that's a funny thing. Like we're getting, like I would say, Kelleher, Shane. We know how good he is, and McCarthy. They're all very good around the field. Like they're excellent around the field. But you'd always go, yeah, you want that. But you see as well with England in the World Cup, in the World Cup final back in 2019, they had skillful front rowers, but the front rowers were not doing the fundamentals right. Like you take Kyle Sinclair and Franz Malherbe, you think about in open play, you'd rather have Sinclair, wouldn't you? But Malherbe does the basics so well. Franz Malherbe is like you get an appreciation for just how important the scrum and the lineouts are, and he hits a lot of rucks too. So fair play, he kind of gives the big boys a reason to play, which is why you've got to keep the scrum. In fairness, like the big lads need something to do. And if you've been training your whole life to get good at the set piece, and then they take that away from you, it's like you're ruining a lot of lads who specialise in that sort of thing. They're good at that, and that's how they're able to play. So you shouldn't really be taking that away. That's play rugby league. It's a fun sport, but that's what it's there for. Guys who don't want to play rugby union, but still want the physicality of the collisions. Um, I thought our scrum was actually okay. Thomas Clarkson had quite a good game. He got smashed twice, like big hits, but he got back up. He got back up very well. And look, you're going to get hit hard. It's rugby, so fair play. He's coming into his own. I think that international experience really stood to him. But geez, contender for man of the match, Andrew Porter. Like that chase back, when it looked like Clermont were going to get a try, he made such a great effort to get back. Playing to nearly the 76th minute, just under it. Like, my God, that's incredible. But it's too much. Yeah, he did brilliantly. Like, he always does. He's great, but that is too much. And, like, if Kane Healy can only do 5 minutes, not even, sorry, like 4 minutes, that's not good. Like, I remember watching the semi final of the URC when Ulster were playing the Stormers, and Tom O'Toole had to do 80 minutes, and then they had this fella Milosevic, Jesus, Milosevic or something, the Serbian kind of Yugoslavian sounding name. I think he was Australian. This fella, playing at Ulster at the time. I don't know if he still does, but it shows a real lack of faith in the guy that you have on the bench. To me, and like people are saying, Kane Healy should go on the Lions tour. But if he's good enough to do that, then surely you put him on with like 20 minutes to go. Andrew Porter is great. Like he's a brilliant player, and he deserved to be up there for man of the match. But he's going to get a significant injury if they keep on doing that. Like how it works a lot of the time is you think, oh yeah, he's great, he's fine, but it builds up. Something is waiting to go, and it's usually a significant injury. If you're getting injured all the time, then that's shit, obviously. But if you're not, and people keep pushing you and pushing you to your limits, the chances are the injury will be very significant. It'll be a bad one. So we really need to think about that now. Like Michael Milne can do a good job. I always trip up with that name. Like Milne. Never know when to stop with the N. But like, let's get him on, or Jack Boyle. Let's have somebody there. The future players getting game time. Let's have them waiting to go. I think Milne is good enough. Like he's a good player. Jack Boyle looks like a decent lad, but he's kind of last in the pecking order at the minute. So you'd have Milne and Porter, I would say, for sure. And then like a tie head, you have Slimani and Clarkson. Obviously Furlong, whenever he's fit, comes back. But there's an example. I remember watching the 2016 game when we beat the All Blacks in Dublin, and Furlong played 70 minutes. And he could do that week in, week out, and we certainly used him like that. But then, look at him, he keeps getting injured now. So, that's the negative side of it. You can't keep asking a big lad who has to scrummage, lift, ruck, all that shit, to then go in and start playing 70 plus minutes. Like, it's not fair on them. It's too much. And you see, like, South Africa, why they're so successful is because they've so much depth. And that's why they win. And you can say we don't have the calibre of player, But we need to get that player on. We need to get the players on and get them international experience. Hell, we know if they're good enough if we don't play them. And let's play Irish lads so that we're not getting a load of lads from abroad, like New Zealand rejects, essentially, you know. Just because they're from the Southern Hemisphere doesn't make them better than Irish players. Do you remember when they brought over Michael Bent and they gave him his first Ireland cap before he even made his debut for Leinster? They just assumed he'd be good enough. Or, as well as that, we'd nobody else to replace Mike Ross or John Hayes after they left. So you're kind of left with no choice. And then Nathan White, who was about 35 by the time he came over to Ireland. Why not play John Ryan? You know, I think Stephen Archer was more of a provincial player, you know, and he's 30, nearly 37 now, I think. John Ryan still looks good, looks sharp. I've watched him now and he's been good, been very good. Ollie Yeager's back, which is great to see. So hopefully now he can play as well as I know he can. I've seen him play very well. Good calibre of player as well because he's played for the Crusaders. So he's won Super Rugby titles with them. So yeah, should be good to have him back and hopefully he can have a consistent spell now. And I know with Graham Roundtree gone, maybe they won't be overworked. I'm still a fan of Roundtree, so I don't know, but he is old school, and there was a good chance he was overworking the players because the amount of injuries were insane. Um, but yeah, Andrew Porter, what a game. Clarkson was good too. But then he went off, and Slimani came on at the right time, and Slimani kind of knows how Clermont play, given that he's been at them for so long himself. Bit of a funny signing for me as well. I didn't really get my head around that one. It was kind of weird seeing Ala Alatoa, who I've met, actually, lovely fella. He's on the tie head side for Clermont, having played for Leinster, and Slimani, having played for Clermont, is now playing for Leinster. Weird one. Like for like replacement, I guess. But if you were picking a man in the match, I think it has to go to Jordy Barrett because he covered every inch of the field like a good fullback does. He's a big physical man, but he covers the ground so well. He was everywhere. It was like having five players in the back line. He was covering every position. So you could kind of have free reign to do what you wanted and leave him there just to cover every inch of grass, which he definitely did. He was exceptional, you know. And he's a big lad too. Like he's tall, so he commands the air so well. But he runs. My brother was telling me he runs like 10 kilometers in 40 minutes. Wow, and to be that physical and that strong, like that's impressive. And he's hit the ground running. Like he's done very well. Snyman was a bit of a mixed bag when he came on. Again, I'm using that phrase, but one or two good line breaks, looking to get his arms free. Didn't do a whole lot when he was on, but luckily he could get something going. But the line out was horrific. And in fairness to Prendergast, credit where it's due, he gets every inch on his kicks, and it's not a fluke because he does it every time. I know Clermont were kind of catching on to it, but in fairness to them, it was very impressive the skill that they carried out to, like jump outside and bring it back just about. Like they weren't like right beside the line either. They were doing some amount of jumping, some distance as well. They've obviously been practicing. Very neatly done. So that was a really good piece of skill from them. I wouldn't blame Prendergast for that at all. So yeah, top performers for me for Leinster would be James Ryan. Thought Van der Fleer had a quiet game by his standards, but wasn't bad. Didn't think Doris had a great game, I've got to say. Thought McCarthy had an okay game. Got a bad injury, unfortunately, but did alright. No, he didn't do too badly at all. Clarkson had a decent game. Kelleher okay around the field, but that throwing just wasn't there, unfortunately. But again, not just his fault. It's a whole system that's got to be fixed. And just let's mention it. Munster's line out the previous week against Stade Francais looked incredible. It was so good. Peter O'Mahony looks like he's got a few more years left in him, but he bossed that line out really well. Munster's line out worked brilliantly. They were so good. So like, yeah, I'm kind of there thinking to myself, is it because there's a majority of Leinster players in there? It's got to be said. Like, we've Leinster hookers only, really. And, like, in fairness, when you've got Dan Sheehan and Ronan Kelleher, and then you've got the likes of Gus McCarthy coming through, it's fair to see why. Like, there is no one really at that level. Dave Heffernan looks decent, a bit of a fiery lad, isn't he? For Connacht, but looks decent enough. Niall Scannell has always had a good throw and always been quite dependable. But yeah, Dermot Barron was the one thrown for Munster, and it was very good. Oh man, he bossed that line out. It was always going well for them. John Hodnett, Alex Kendellen, Gavin Coombs, all looked very good. So that was very good to see. The previous week, yeah, not the best performance, and they were defending their own goal line a lot against Castres. So yeah, you're always on the back foot. But French teams are a different animal at home, for sure. Yeah, but like Andrew Porter, brilliant performance. The chase back was insane, but that should have been a bonus point game for Leinster for sure. People were saying, "Oh, Clermont just did really well," but no, Leinster just didn't do well enough, in my opinion. They wore them down. You're there thinking, "Go on and win now," but every time they went to the corner, lost their line out. And it's such a weapon for Ireland, and obviously the Irish provinces. Like, we need that line out to be functioning. We just need it to be. If it's not, then we go to shit. So not a great week for Irish provinces at all. And I include the Leinster game and that. I know they got the win, but they should have hammered Clermont. You know, from the get go, and George Moala getting injured as well. Like, big centre, bringing on that baldy fella, Uder Pieta, the lad who pushed around O'Gara, So we know what kind of character he is. But it's kind of a little insight, isn't it? Like, not putting games to bed, not hammering teams when you should. You've got to be more clinical. And I know this all seems very harsh, but it's not like they're short on resources. It's not like they don't have the experience. And they always talk about how superior their academy systems are. Okay, but then you need to start winning stuff. There's no use getting to every final. It's like always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That kind of way. It's all well and good getting to finals, but you got to actually win them. That's for Leinster, of course, and then for Ireland, we all know it, don't we? The elephant in the room. Every time you keep hearing it from us, particularly South African fans, of course. I'd like to just say that we did beat you a majority of the times. For the last 5 games we've won 4 of them, so we do have bragging rights in that, but you do have the World Cups, so yeah, we have to kind of suck that one up. When I think of Ireland, I almost get a semi. Yeah, very clever boys. I think Scott Brits said it as well. But you want the bragging rights, you gotta win. Simple as. I don't even think it's good enough for Ireland to get to a semi-final. I think they have to get to the final at least. Because they've set that standard for themselves, and they seem more obsessed with the world ranking than actually going out and dominating and putting in a good performance. Like Munster against all odds, right? And this is going to a different province, but when they won the URC, it was 2 seasons ago now. Like, that was against all the odds. There was very little chance of them doing it. They beat Glasgow in Glasgow. They beat the Stormers in Cape Town, and then they did it again in the final when nobody thought they were going to do it. Stormers even got very arrogant and said, like, "Oh yes, we're delighted because we've got Munster in the final." Now, they were saying it's because we got a home final, in Cape Town. But a lot of people were saying, yeah, we didn't get Leinster. So you're kind of thinking to yourself, alright, maybe. But then Leinster bottled it as well, didn't they? Munster won the final that year, right, when the odds were completely stacked against them. But then they topped the URC, got a home semi-final against Glasgow, they didn't play great against Ospreys in the quarter-final, but they didn't have to. They didn't have to be great, they got the job done, given the form that Welsh provinces are in. they got the job done, and that's all you need to do. So no issue there. But you think to yourself, okay, you didn't have a great one there, but you'll pick it up next week. They didn't. Glasgow were down to 13 men at one stage, and Munster still couldn't put them to bed. Lost 10-17, if I'm not mistaken. Nankivell got a red card at the end of that game too, and it just kind of epitomised what a shit day it was for Munster. And you can't have much sympathy. You know, Glasgow were down to 13 men. You topped the whole URC. You've beaten Glasgow already this season, so you can do it. It's obviously the occasion again. The occasion got to them. That's what we hear all the time. And if we want to keep saying we're world number one, which I don't think we are, I think you've got to win World Cups to be considered number one, and then club wise you got to win something, like winning the ORC like Munster did, beating Leinster. Sorry, how did I forget that one in the Aviva? Fair fucks, you know. But do you have to always be the underdog? There seems to be a thing with Ireland where we have to be the underdog. You know, if we're expected to win, the expectation gets to us, and we can't be like that. Champions rise to the occasion, you know. And that's an example to give you. I know there's a lot of animosity between South Africa and Ireland, but credit where it's due. You know, they won the quarter final by 1 point. Played outstanding against France. France were very unlucky though in that game. You know, they were exceptional, but it makes differences like that. That knockdown by Etzebeth was questionable, wasn't it? Like they said, he knocked it down as opposed to forward. But I've seen them given, and you think to yourself, that's a penalty try for France. They're 14-0 up, and would have been a yellow card because there was a certain try going to be scored. But South Africa go down the other end and score. But Cheslin Colby sprinting out and blocking down Thomas Ramos when he was going for a conversion. Now I know it was near the sideline, but he nails nearly every kick. So likely he would have gotten that, and that's 2 points. That wins France the game. So winning it by a point, 29-28, those are the big moments. But to go from that, South Africa played terribly against England. But England weren't of the same calibre as France and punched well above their weight. In fairness to them, they did very well. And they got to the semi-final, they got a bronze medal after everybody shitting all over them and saying they were brutal, and they did. They gave them a woeful time, but they rose to the occasion. And Ireland certainly didn't, with all the odds in their favour. England nearly beat South Africa and played the conditions very well. And were it not for a Snyman try and a really good kick and a great scrum by South Africa at the end, they would have lost that game. But they played well enough, you know, and they decided when Marks got injured that Pollard was fit, let's bring him over because Libok's not kicking very well. Manny Libok and Damien Willemse didn't kick very well either. So smart move on their part, you know, and having players who can just slot into roles very, very easily. And obviously Damien Willemse calling that scrum, you know, from the mark when he went like that. And that was to tire out the French pack, FYI. Rassi was speaking about that, Rassi Erasmus. When Thomas Ramos put in the kicks, he didn't want the whole French pack having to, you know, defend again. So put the ball out, give yourself a chance, and then put them all on side, because it's a big pack that France have. So it was good tactics, it was genius. But then for Willems to go scrum, that was very clever, because you're knackered, you're running around the pitch, and now you have the scrum, and South Africa get the penalty from it. Risky, high risk, high reward, you know. I've no issue with the bomb squad whatsoever, because if you've got the firepower, do it, you know. But then the final, to grind it out against New Zealand as well, just doing enough every time, but grinding it out was really important. And having lads like Van Staden, Marco Van Staden and Dion Forey in the background playing at hooker, and then it has to actually happen. Forey had to come in and play hooker in the final because Mbanambi got injured and Marks had already been injured in the first game. So that's shit going wrong, you know. That's stuff coming at you and you have to deal with it. That's adversity 101. Not beating Ireland in the group stage, well, we still have that one. Well, at least Like that's the thing. But coming back to Ireland, like we're the only team to beat the world champions in the World Cup. How can we do it in the group stage but not do it in the knockout stage? We've never won a knockout game in the Rugby World Cup. Isn't that insane? And it's not good enough. We need to change something. You know, like the provinces have been doing well for years, but underachieving a lot of times. Like how many finals now have Leinster lost? Um, and that's the thing. They've beaten Toulouse in the group stage or the quarter final, but then they lose to them in the final. They've beaten La Rochelle in the group stage, but they lose to them in the final. Like they dismantled La Rochelle last season, got to the final against Toulouse, a team that they would have fancied to be. La Rochelle were the bogey team, and they got over that hurdle. But then, like in Croke Park against Northampton in the semi final, I remember watching that game thinking they were very lucky to win that game, and that's what I talk about not putting games to bed. Like Northampton were expected to be hammered. It was Leinster in Croke Park in front of a sellout crowd, which in fairness the fans, like they're incredible. Like when I was there going to the Australia game, going to the Leinster v Munster game, you couldn't get in. There were still crowds of people getting stuck outside, waiting to go in late because the stadium was packed out. So just fortunate enough for me that either side of me, I don't know what it is because no one wanted to sit next to me, but I had space either side of me for the Ireland versus Australia game. Yeah, no, it was really good. But the game wasn't great. Like, wasn't a great spectacle, and you just think to yourself, they need to start putting games to bed. Because the talent is there. I don't believe the talent isn't there. I think it's definitely there. But we need to actually use it, you know, and you can't be chucking a lad in the deep end. You have to get him game time. Otherwise, how's he supposed to be confident? If he's a young lad and he's no international experience, but we've an injury and then all of a sudden, all right, off you go. How do you expect him to perform well? So we have to start thinking smarter and going, look, let's start creating that depth. Keep saying it, but we need to do it. And be more clinical, be ruthless, put games to bed. Um, Leinster will need to up the ante if they want to win the final this year. That's all I'd say because Toulouse look very strong, as they always do. But Biafu powering through people. Thibaut Flamand playing very well. Tafida Tatafu, big lad. Is he playing with Toulouse now? I'm just wondering. Piada Movaka, what a player. And of course Antoine Dupont doing what he always does. Ramos kicking everything, you know. So yeah, we're gonna need a big performance like every game, and hopefully we'll see the results from it, you know. But it's getting annoying as an Ireland fan and a Leinster fan, and like for the Irish provinces. Like I love seeing all of them doing well, but constantly being let down. You know, like just we need to start seeing results, or people I think will start getting pissed off because the Irish fans have been excellent. Like they've been outstanding. The amount of people that went over to France to support them and paid what I'm told sometimes €12 for a point. Maybe you can let me know in the comments if you paid that much. Which is staying in shitty accommodation as well, like with bed bugs and all in it. Ugh. But it's like they go everywhere and they support the team, but they're let down every year. Like, what is the excuse going to be in the next World Cup if we don't win? Um, like that was our year. Last year was our year to win it. I don't care what anybody says. You know that was the year to do it. You know, a flawless group stage apart from like letting Romania score first in the first game of the group stage, but then getting a really good win over them. You know, beating South Africa. Jeez, that was good. You know, making a statement win against Tonga, which we did very well. And then shutting Scotland up, our Celtic rivals, who were given a big talk beforehand. New Zealand like had such a shitty build up. Like when you think about it, you know, hammered and humiliated in Twickenham by South Africa, 35-7. Really hammered by their media going into it, then beaten by France on the opening game. So, I mean, I wouldn't imagine that their confidence was too high going into the World Cup at all, but then to lose the first game. But they picked it up, you know. Um, and like we had no injuries. Ireland were injury free going in. We'd more game time for all our players than any other nation. And then they argue, oh, were they overplayed? You're like, shut up, you can't keep making excuses. You've got to go out and perform. Right? Match fitness is the most important thing, and they all had that and they weren't injured, so that's the thing. When you look at that final, I wish. If only it were a final. That quarter final against New Zealand. There's a few key moments in that game, and this is if we're nitpicking, of course, but you think to yourself, I love Andrew Porter, great player. His eagerness is what makes him a great player, so I guess you can't just switch it off, but giving away a cheap penalty and an easy clearance for New Zealand in their own 22, then Ireland giving them easy penalties in front of goal, putting them 6-0 up. And then Bowden Barrett, who's one of the best chip kickers, chipping it over the top of the defence. We've nobody back defending the space. He runs in behind and then we're on the back foot, and Fainga'anuku scored in the corner. I think I got that name right, Lester Fainga'anuku. But 13-0 down in the first half against the All Blacks, and you think to yourself, we're up against it now. A few very questionable penalties in the scrum now, I have to say, in our defence, but look, Wayne Barnes, I know people say he loves Ireland. I think he penalised us very harshly, but that's beside the point. The things you can control are what I've just mentioned, and then to go from that to 18-17 down at half time and a yellow card. New Zealand had 2 yellow cards in that game. Aaron Smith for his finger brushed the ball, and Wayne Barnes, in fairness, spotted it very well, or I don't know if he spotted it or the TMO did, but they came up with the right decision. So to only have played about, I would say, even 40% of their best, and to go in at half time only a point down, 1 point down against the All Blacks, that's great. And then you think to yourself, okay, let's push on now. We've had a bit of a wobbly start, but we're still well in this. Let's go out and start as we mean to go on. And they didn't. Very, very poor. And I don't think anyone called them out on it afterwards. We talk about those mistakes, Andrew Porter being overly eager, nobody in the backfield defending a chip kick from Bowden Barrett, which he's known for. Then you think to yourself, letting Richie Mwunga run straight through the defence from a line out, a fly half breaking through off a line out is a cardinal sin. And then he puts Will Jordan away, and Will Jordan is like lightning. He doesn't even look like he's moving that fast, but he's just gliding along. It's a sight to behold. And once he got the ball in his hands, I was like, nah, they're not catching him. He certainly loves scoring against Ireland, doesn't he? But then, Johnny Sexton got mad after that game, but he missed the kick right in front of the posts. I'm sorry, what's your excuse for that? You've got the most caps. Or you're one of the most capped players for Ireland. You're one of the most experienced. And look, he will go down as a legend, but he missed a kick right in front of the posts that would have put us within 5 points. That's the big moment. You've got to step up on that occasion and you didn't. So be angry at yourself for that. That's unforgivable. And then Doris, as we mentioned, dropping the ball. And let's look at the context he dropped it as well. We'd had a penalty try from a rolling maul. Okay, and a yellow card for Cody Taylor. That's a huge turnaround in our favour. So that's the second yellow card, right? That's 20 minutes New Zealand are down to 14 men. So we had the opportunity. Kelleher gets held up over the line by a brilliant piece of defence by Geordie Barrett that, in the context of the game, wins them it. That's individual brilliance. Fair enough, you go to yourself, right, that happens, fine. That's nobody's fault. We did everything right. But now we've got a goal line dropout. Doris, catch it and just run. That's all you do. Just catch the ball and run. and he drops it. It's so easy, like it's such a simple catch. And look, I know nerves will be going through you, I get that, but we have to hold the team more accountable. Like that's the only way we're gonna improve. And then like we have that moment, right? Then Jordy Barrett misses a penalty right in front of the post, one that you think he's gonna nail. And then after that, Conor Murray impedes Will Jordan and gives New Zealand the penalty. Gives Jordy Barrett literally a second or so after, right after he's missed that kick, gives him another chance and goes, "Oh, you missed that one. Here you go. Here's another one." Another very experienced player and a great servant. Like they're all great servants, but those are key moments, and you've got to take advantage of them. You can't be making stupid errors like that. That's just not on, and that's how you lose games. Like it's just insane how it happens all the time. It always happens. In the big occasion. So, look, if we want to improve, we've got to start holding people accountable. We're going to need to see huge improvements from Leinster and Munster as well, and hopefully with Ireland and the Six Nations. we should expect them to at least win it, if not get a Grand Slam, just because of how the other teams are playing. Like, France you always have to be worried about, but we're at home to them, and France are a different animal away from home. They're not nearly as clinical. They don't travel very well, that's a known fact. So, I'm not expecting it to be an easy game, but I'm expecting us to get over the line. And then for Scotland and Murrayfield, so that's going to be a tough one. I think we might get that one. If we show up, we will. That'll be a big game. Now that'll be the make or break game. I think. I expect us to beat England because we're at home for that one. I expect us to beat Wales and Italy. Yeah, I think the big games will be Scotland and France, because France look bloody good at the minute. Physical, big pack. I like the way they've gone with Jesus, big pack, isn't it? Like you've got Jean-Baptiste Gros at loose head, then Movaka, who was exceptional, Piotr Movaka at hooker. Tavita Tafu was a beast of a man, about 150 kilos, and then in behind him, Miafu, who's 145. Thibaut Flamand, who I'm a big fan of, another big fella, but more mobile, gets around the pitch and is very fit for a big fella. Paul Boudon and Alexandre Ruma. And I think they'll have Gregory Aldrit back at number 8, so scary prospect. That's a big pack, so we're going to have our work cut out for us there. We're going to have to be on our game. It's one where I'd really like to have Furlong back, because I don't fancy Baleam up against the bigger fellas. Now, I know he proved himself against Mighty Williams. He did very well there, in fairness to him. But, we're going to need firepower for that game. Maybe even Ollie Jaeger, if he's playing well. Hopefully he gets a bit more game time. But yeah, let me know what you think, guys. It's just that I hope improvements are made, and a little review of round 2. I think it's just the problems that we have that we need to address if we want to move on and win. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.